Alright guys, this is Braden, Sharksicle Gaming, coming at you with another deck tech. You're getting a back-to-back double feature tonight. This is, like I said, the second in a series of decks that sat in my I'm going to build that one day pile in my brain. I'd be gathering up cards every once in a while, and I'd stick them in a part of my binder together and stuff like that, even if they weren't the same color. I knew I was eventually building it, but I figured it was going to take me forever. And as you already can tell by the thumbnail, it's Phelddagrif. Now, this is an interesting deck. Strictly speaking, it has no win cons, right? So this is Phelddagrif with no win cons. It's a politics deck, so basically my win cons are just hopefully edging myself into the best position relative to my opponents throughout the course of the game, getting them to kill each other. There's a few stacksy pieces in here. Sorry, I've got the hiccups. There's a few board wipes is a strong word. I've picked the ones that kind of let me either myself or players pick one, or like that balance. I think I've got a Magus of the balance in here that like go down to the player with the lowest number of those things. So more of even things out than a true board wipe. Phelddagrif very rarely comes out, although I do want to go ahead and put the disclaimer that I have it Phelddagrif because one day I'm going to I'm gonna have illusionist bracers on there, and we'll have a lot of fun. But I know a lot of people are playing Kinnan on the 2-color or on the 5-color group hug path, and I've always thought Phelddagrif is the mascot for group hug. He has so much potential on the card to really do that. And I mean, just look at him, man. How can you not be in love with that card? So I've got this separated into, if you've watched me do deck techs before, you know how I do it. As I do different batches or different groupings, as you say, of themes basically in the deck. So I'll start here with what I've labeled as true group hug. These things are not necessarily something that I can target, although I'm sure there's some instance where I could. These are not the choose you and an opponent, the offerings, although I do have the full cycle of the three that can fit in the Phelddagrif colors in here. This is more of the like true, everybody benefits from this, myself and my opponents equally, right? So Howling Mine, beginning of each player's draw step. If Howling Mine's untapped, they draw an additional card. Neat. Quain, the itinerant meddler. This is tap. Each player may draw a card, and each player who drew a card this way gains a life. Easy enough. Conundrum Sphinx. This one is hilarious. It is a 4-mana 4/4 flyer. Anytime he attacks, each player says a card name. Each player gets to reveal the top card of their library, and if the player revealed the card that they chose, they get to put it in their hand, and if they don't, they put it on the bottom. Very rarely does this work, although sometimes, if you're playing against some mono-colored decks, they can just sit there and name Forest over and over again. Or if players are playing, I've got a, where is it? A Courser of Crufix in the deck, so like that's just kind of that card combo is silly. So like stuff like that. It is technically true group hug. I guess it could just as easily go into the one of kind of I can swing it in my favor as well, but I think opponents can just as easily as I can. Selvalla's Charge. Each player reveals the top of their library. For each non-land card revealed this way, you put a 3/3 elephant onto the battlefield. Each player draws a card. This is also kind of in an instance where it could probably be just as much in my favor, if not more tilted towards me than my opponents. But I mean, everybody's drawn a card equally off of it, right? So that's the kind of group hugginess of it. Hypergenesis, same deal here. On paper, this card is exactly even. Everybody just drops all their best shit. Could I potentially make sure that I cast this around the time in which I have the best shit? Maybe, but with 3 turns between when I want to cast it and when it resolves, who knows what's going to happen, right? Folio of Fancies. Players have no max hand size. Hey, that seems group huggy. Pay double X and tap. Each player draws X cards, and then each opponent puts a number of cards equal to the number of cards in their hand. They mill the number of cards in their hand. So like that's it's I'm never gonna win the game off of the mill of that. It's mostly just that everybody gets to draw a bunch of cards. Loxodon Peacekeeper. 2-mana 4/4 at the beginning of my upkeep. The player with the lowest life total gains control of them. I get to choose if they're tied. So political, group huggy. Who doesn't want a free 4/4, right? Selvala, Explore Return, 3 mana, 2/4, Parlay, tap, each player reveals the top of their library. For each non-land card revealed that way, I get a green mana, and I get to gain a life. Each player draws a card. Hey, probably a little bit more in my favor, right? I'm getting the mana off of it. Each player's drawing a card, even, right? So you can kind of see the idea of the deck there. Mine's a glow, 1 mana. Each player may pay any amount of mana, and each player draws X cards, where X is the total amount of mana paid. I've drawn 15 cards. Everybody's drawn 15 cards of this card before. So it does get fun. Dictate a crew fix, flash in at the beginning of each player's draw step, they draw an additional card. Temple Bell, 2 mana tap, each player draws a card. Rites of Flourishing, you draw an additional card on your draw step, and each player may play an additional land each of their turns. So a whole lot of each player this, each player that. Mostly not able to be skewed, although, like we've seen, there's some opportunities for that. Next, we'll kind of move into more of what I call targeted group hug, or like the political cards that really kind of, what are we going to do here, and force that interaction. And if you'll watch my other video, what you'll see is the point of these two decks was that Magic sometimes seems a little monotonous. It seems like you're playing solitaire, and so are 3 other people at the table with you, and there's very little interaction. That's what drew a lot of people to see EDH, is all of this different, combo stacks and stuff like that. But do I want competitive Commander? Not personally. I mean, I'll play some of it sometimes, but for the most part, what I really want is a game that lasts, 10 or 12 turns, but that has a lot of people like talking and joking and like communicating with each other, and not just sitting there like, I'm playing everything on my turn and then I'm on my phone until my next turn, because like, unless I need to declare blocks or something, that's just not good EDH, right? So these here force that conversation. If I have these offering cards and stuff, and it's wanting people to deal with me, oh man, I mean, make a deal. You know what I mean? You got to tell me what's in it for me if I'm about to give you a free tree folk or something. So let's go through these cards then. The offering cycle is X, choose and a green. Choose an opponent. You and that player each make an XX tree folk. Choose an opponent. You and that player each make X 1/1 green elf warrior tree tokens. This is massively complicated, right? I can choose the same opponent for both modes. I can choose different opponents for each one. I can try and, if I'm down to just 2 opponents, man, that's really a big thing then if one guy's already dead, right? Crazy, crazy thoughts going on there. But at the end of the day, I'm getting both. And if I choose 2 different opponents, they're not. The idea of the deck, remember, push myself slightly out into the edge so that by the time it's just down to me and one other guy, got it. Benevolent Offering, 4 and a white, choose an opponent. You and that player each make 3/1/1 spirits. Choose an opponent, you gain 2 life for each creature you control, and that player gains 2 life for each creature they control, right? Again, I'm getting both. And then Intellectual Offering, 5 mana, choose an opponent, you and that player each draw 3. Choose an opponent, untap all non-land permanents you control, and all non-land permanents that player controls. Again, I'm the one that's supposed to come out on top of these, right? Regna Sanction, 4 mana for each player, choose friend or foe. Each friend puts a +1/+1 counter on each creature they control, and each foe chooses 1 untapped creature they control and then taps the rest. I can choose friend for myself and foe for all 3 of the other guys if I want to make myself a target. I can choose friend for everybody if I want to fly under the radar. I can choose friend for 3 players, myself included, and choose foe for 1 if they're the one we're trying to go ahead and get out of this game really quickly. It's so thought-provoking, you know what I mean? Zinder Split's Judgment, 5 mana for each player, choose friend or foe. Each friend makes a token that's a copy of a card they control, and each foe bounces a creature they control to their hand, right? Tempt with Reflections. So these is tempting offer cards here. I'll put that actually in the back, because we'll do that here in just a second. Do I have any more friend or foe cards? Here we go. Pier's Whim, 4 mana for each player, choose friend or foe. Each friend searches their library for a land and puts it on the battlefield tapped, and then shuffles, and each foe sacks an artifact or enchantment they control. Right? Dawnbreak Reclaimer, 6 mana, 5/5 flyer. At the beginning of your end step, choose a creature card in an opponent's graveyard. That player chooses a creature card in your graveyard. And if you want, you can put both those back onto the battlefield. This is politics, baby. You can sit here and say, I'm choosing that one. If you'll choose mine, we'll get to both put them back in, right? It's every turn, which is nutty. Glunch. This has been my favorite of the newer cards. From this Baldur's Gate set. It's a 3 mana 0/5 flyer. So great body to block if you've got a guy playing a flying commander. You just don't want to take 3 commander damage from every turn. But at the beginning of your end step, choose a player. They put 2+1/+1 counters on a creature they control. Choose a second player to draw a card. Then choose a third player to create 2 treasure tokens. So I can choose myself for one of these, right? But the crazy thing is to get the treasure token effect, I have to have 3 total players in the game. So this is the kind of thing that only gets better because I can choose myself. I can choose one opponent for the +1/+1 counters. I can choose another one to draw a card. I can choose myself for the treasures. I can choose however I want to word that. But one guy's getting left out if I've got a full table, and then down the line, it's I can only do the second if I've done the first, and I can only do the third if I've done the second. It really kind of makes you have to sit there and scratch your head of what am I willing to give up for what I want. Avarice Amulet. This here is a 4 mana equipped creature, gets +2/+0 and has vigilance. And at the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card. If that creature dies, target opponent gains control of Avarice Amulet. I usually just stick that on my commander, kind of as a way to stop it from being killed, but because I have to give it to an opponent, it does kind of create that politics subgame there. Pendant of Prosperity. 3 mana, enters battlefield under the control of an opponent of my choice. I can pay 2, or the opponent can pay 2 and tap to draw a card, then put a land card from their hand on the battlefield. Then I get to draw a card, and then I can put a land onto the battlefield. So basically, me and one opponent get to reap the rewards of this for the rest of the game. Tempt with Discovery. That's the 4 mana tempting offer. Search your library for a land, put it on the battlefield. Each opponent gets to do that, but for each opponent who does, I get to do it again. Okay, so basically it's just I will get the effect that everybody gets out of it. And the same thing with Tempt with Reflections. I get to choose a creature I control, get a copy of him. Each opponent can copy something, or each opponent can get a copy of that same creature that I did, but for everyone that does, I get another one. I mean, just throw it on a mana dork, and it's like, wow, okay, does nobody want, 3 mana dorks? Hell. What to do next? I think I'll talk about some of these sort of level of cards. I don't have a ton of them in here, but there are 5. Tragic Arrogance, 5 mana. I get to choose from among the permanents they control an artifact, a creature, an enchantment, a planeswalker. Then they sack all other non-land permanents they control. So sacrifice gets around indestructibility and stuff, but basically lets me politic with people of like, hey, you cool if I reset the board? I'll pick this, and this for you. And you just kind of have that conversation with everybody, and then everybody's cool with it. It's kind of like when you're playing and it's like, hey, is anybody cool if I wheel? Like, I can wheel, right? Yeah, okay, we all hate our hands. Okay, cool, you cast a wheel. Nobody's mad about it, right? Sorry, there's a hair inside the sleeve. Magus of the Balance, 2 mana. I can pay 5 and tap and sack him. Each player chooses a number of lands they control equal to the number of lands by the player who controls the fewest, then sacks the rest. Each player discards cards and sacrifices creatures the same way. So basically, resets everybody to whoever's got the least of lands, creatures, and cards in hand. Planar Overlay, 3 mana. Each player chooses a land they control for each basic land type. Return those lands to their owner's hands. So I may end up actually getting short stick of this because it's a 3-color deck, but basically if I've got all 3 basics on the battlefield, I'm putting one of each of those in my hand, so is every opponent. Balancing Act, 4 mana. Each player chooses a number of permanents they control equal to the number of permanents controlled by the player who controls the fewest, sacks the rest. Each player discards cards the same way. So similar to Magus of the Balance, although this doesn't specify how you have to break it up. So you can literally choose, all lands, no lands, have everybody else sacking their creatures while you leave your creatures on the battlefield. You just have no lands, that kind of stuff. So it's a weird card, and then you discard cards from your hand the same way. I think it creates that conversation for people. And then Divine Reckoning, 4 mana. Each player chooses a creature they control, destroy the rest. And then Flashback for 7. So, 4 mana board wipe and then 7 mana board wipe. I put this in the deck, even though it's not necessarily as good as like Damnation or something, because the flashback effect basically makes it 2 board wipes in 1, even if it leaves 1 creature on the battlefield. Beyond here, we'll go over, these are a couple cards that are just strictly for me, right? I do need to be ahead at the end of this. This is the newest addition to the deck, and it's a Supreme Judge. It's a 6 mana, 6/4 flyer. If somebody attacks me or a planeswalker I control, I get to draw a card. Search the premises. If somebody attacks me or a planeswalker I control, I get to investigate. Imposing Sovereign. Creatures my opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. That's another huge thing with the the tempt cards, right? Is if I'm creating like a bunch of tokens for you and a bunch of tokens for me, but all yours enter tapped, then I'm strictly coming out ahead. I had a lot of rhetoric. This one I've lost some friends over, but I did cast the tempt with reflections on this, so I had it, and then I got to make one more of it, and then I gave the opponents the option to make one as well to see if they wanted to make any more, let me make any more. Because the thought process is, right, is if that stacks is already on the board twice, what are the odds of me killing both of it, or do I just want to double down? That way, I can get out of it. And so there's a decision to be put to people. Bloodthirsty Blade. Creature gets +2/+0 and is goaded, so it just can't attack me. And I can attach to any creature opponent's control for 1 mana. And then there is Edric. That's 3 mana 2/2. If a creature deals combat damage to one of my opponents, its controller may draw a card. So this helps me if I attack, but it also just kind of keeps everyone off of my back. There's a couple of just generic utility cards. These are things that mostly just help me. There's draw spells, scry spells. I've got Tormod's Crypt, Reclamation Sage. Soul of Emancipation is kind of just like a green, white, blue. I can suddenly Bant. It's kind of like a Bant Terastodon. It gives them 3/3 Flying Angels. Narset Transcendent lets me copy, one of my spells, and some of these spells are really fun to copy. Saving Grasp is flashback in 2 of my colors, 1 mana to bounce something to my hand. Can really get me out of some tight spots, especially with these board wipes that I've got here. Abundance, if I would draw, I get to instead choose land or non-land, flip until I hit that one, put them in my hand. Aegis of the Gods giving me hexproof. Courser getting me life, getting me the ability to play lands off the top, so filtering, all those kind of things. Manifold Insights, reveal the top 10 of my library. The next opponent turn order, each opponent chooses different non-land card from among them. Those all get to go in my hand, the rest go in the bottom. So basically, give me stuff. Curse of Surveillance is a 5 mana curse. At the beginning of enchanted player's upkeep, any number of target players other than that player draw cards equal to the number of curses attached to that player. So basically, I put this on an opponent, and then I get to choose, all right, who else gets to draw 1 card? And then if some other opponents choose to go ahead and curse him, okay, cool. Well, like, maybe we all draw, maybe we draw 2, maybe we draw, so really kind of, it is targeted because you can't help that player out. But usually by turn 5, you've kind of made your alliances and decided which direction you're going. Decoy Gambit, 3 mana for each opponent. Choose up to 1 target creature they control. Return that creature to its owner's hand, unless its controller has you draw a card. Basically, this is a 3 mana draw 3, to be totally honest, but, some players don't care, and then I get to bounce stuff. Mentor of the Meek. Most of my creatures fall under that 2 mana, so paying 1 to draw a card just helps me out. Illusory Gains is hilarious. It's a blue steel creature spell, which is rare. But I control that enchanted creature, and if a creature enters the battlefield under any opponent's control, then attach that to that creature. So basically, I just keep taking control of the newest thing that's in the battlefield. This makes players have to kind of play around how they want to structure their turns. Do I want to play 2 creatures back to back so that you get the weaker one? Can I even afford to do that mana-wise? Do I hope that my opponent plays a creature next turn so that I get control of my creature back? Just absolutely hilarious. Thassa, God of the Sea. Devotion's usually decently high on this, and then the fact that it's a 3 mana 5/5 that lets me scry every turn is pretty good. And Illusionist Bracers, I think, would be hilarious on Phelddagrif. There's a couple of mana rocks, mana dorks in here. Nothing insane. This one's giving life. And then with it being 3-color deck, there's a decent amount of non-basic lands. So I've got Check Lands, Reg Tower, Terramorphic Expanse, and Evolving Wilds. I've got the Scryland for Temple of Plenty, Gain Land. I've got an Exotic Orchard, Indestructible Artifact Land, Scryland, Pain Land, Scryland, Gain Land, Gain Land, Gain Land, and then just a ton of basics. So really, really fun. Again, the whole point of this is interaction, right? The only reason I'm playing this deck is to make other people have to acknowledge the fact that we're all sitting at a table together. There are decisions that need to be made that are going to affect the outcome of this game. and we all need to make sure that we're making those together in a way that benefits everybody and gets you to the end of the game safe and sound. So just like always, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment. I do try and upload as often as possible all this Commander content, whether it's gameplay or deck techs. If you guys like this or like to hear my thought process behind decks, or if you want to hear me like maybe do some mock deck techs for decks that I haven't built yet but that I've kind of thought about, just let me know. Let me know what you guys would want to hear more of, and I'd be happy to get that to you guys. But thank you so much for watching all the way through, and I hope that you guys have a great day. And please watch the Rakdos Chaos video that the link should be appearing in your screen right now. Thank you.